For those who do not know me, I am a control automation engineer. I'm with the Space System Division of the National Institute of Space Research in Brazil. But today we're not talking about satellites, we're talking about this package called PrettyTables that was developed because we need something to print the telemetry in a table, okay? So I'm not going through a presentation, this is just for guidance, but the PrettyTables package is in my personal GitHub account. We should change that sometime, move to another organization maybe. The initial idea was just to replicate this nice web tool where you can just type things and it will print in tables. I need that, but it became much more than that. You have documentation here. I'm trying to document as much as I can, but I probably need help here. It's too much. Yes. But in PrettyTables, we have three backends. We can print tables for text, terminal, HTML, and LaTeX. So you can select which one do you like. What I want to show, first of all, is just some kind of nomenclature that we selected. When you print a table, your data lies here in the table sections. And you can add to the print a header, a row labels with anything you want, and also the row numbers. The header itself is subdivided. I didn't have a better name for header and subheader. It's just because you can have multiple lines here. And you can select colors for those lines. So I call it header and subheader. Just to know this nomenclature. I will show afterwards how we can use this. And there is two nice things that I use a lot in PrettyTables. I call two entities, which is formatters and highlighters. In all three backends, you can select how PrettyTables will format your cell. So you don't have to create another table with the formatted values. It's just a function that receives a value, a row, a column, and returns something that will be rendered afterwards. And a highlighter. The highlighter depends on the backend because to color a cell in the terminal, you use something which is completely different from how you color a cell in HTML. But the idea is to have an activation function that receives the entire table, the entire data you pass, a row, a column, and it returns whatever or not we should activate the highlighter on that cell. Just the theory. Now let's to show it here. Let me increase, maybe. It's fine? Okay. First thing you need, of course, to load the package. And let's define a random matrix here. Okay, so this is a matrix. If you want to, PrettyTable supports three types of data. Anything that compiles with table.jl, dictionaries, and abstract vectors or matrices. Everything is supported. So the sole function you need to know is PrettyTable. It's the only function we will use, and you just add the data you want here, and it prints, okay? Just prints the table. So now let's start to customize it, because the idea of PrettyTables is to have something that you can change anything. So you can build reports, you can analyze the satellite telemetry and whatever you want. So the first thing, let's suppose you want to change the header here. All the configurations are done by keywords. You have a lot of keywords arguments. So you want to change the header, you pass a keyword called a header, and for example, 1, 2, 3, a vector. And you change the header to 1, 2, 3. If you want to add subheaders, instead of passing a vector, you pass a tuple of vectors. Of course, the dimension must match. And then you have one, it's not good the color, but you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. You can go on and on forever. I can have another 7, 8, 9, and then it goes, you do whatever you like. Here I will give you the first tip because you have a lot of options. I just keep implementing, and it really is a lot of, probably I don't know how to use something now. And I try to document everything in the doc string. If you type pretty table here, you can see the document, but it's really long. As long as probably I was on the most, that presentation about how many people are writing documentations. Pretty tables should be very high on that list. But because of this exact problem, I create something called a terminal pager, which I really advise you to use. And then you type pipe. I think this pipe is the name of this character, right? Yeah. You type pipe, and then exclamation mark. And then if you type pretty tables here, you get this less-like program for those who use Linux that you can scroll, right? And you can hit backslash and search for something. For example, alignment. Alignment. And it will show, and you can search it. It's really useful because sometimes I always forget how to use it. So this is the first tip. Use this kind of feature. Okay, so you have the header here. You can also change the alignment, as I said. You just type alignment. For example, you want everything to the left, it goes to the left, to the center, it goes to the center. If you want to have different alignments for the columns, you just pass a vector. So, for example, I'm aligning the first column to the left, to the center, and to the right, and it does what you want. If the tables get really, really large, it crops. So if I try to put a table here with many, many rows, it will just crop. And of course, it will not render the entire table. It's very fast. So you have this feature. I did some help. Okay. So now let's try to format the data. Let's say you have, oops. We'll go back to the original. But you don't like it. Let's say you want to print a message. Let's say that the negative value here is an error. It's not good. So we can create a function called a formatter, which receives three values, v, I, j. V is the value of the cell in the ith row and jth column. So if I just, let's say, if v is lower than 0, then I return error. If not, I return the same value. So it's a formatter. If I call pretty tables with the keyword formatters and pass ft, every time that the values gets negative, it will print error. You can do many things with this. You can, for example, use printf to show just 2 decimal places or whatever you want. Okay, highlighters. It's very important. So the purpose of this package initially was because when you download this telemetry from the satellite, you have a lot of data. You have to analyze many, many things. So I really want to, I'm a terminal person. I'm showing everything here in the terminal. I will not show Pluto because I love the terminal. Pretty tables normally has feature parity between all the three backends when it applies. So everything I'm showing here, it works in LaTeX, works in HTML, of course with minor differences. But I will stick to the terminal now. So I really want to have a system, okay. I really want to have a system that can print the information with colors so I can really easily spot some problems. So let's say you want to make all the negative values here red. So all that you have to do is create this entity called highlighter. And the highlighter receives two information. The first one is a function, as I said, an activation function. Data is the entire table. I and j is the cell and the column we are analyzing. So let's say I want to activate this highlighter if the data is lower than 0. And the second argument here is a crayon. A crayon that tells pretty tables how to change the color of the cell. Let's say bold red. Okay, so I create a highlighter. And then I just need to call PrettyTables with this highlighters. And then everything that is negative gets red. I can have multiple highlighters. For example, I can change here to, oops. I can change here for greater or equal 0, and then change to blue, maybe. And if I pass a tuple of highlighters here, it uses both, and everything that is positive gets blue. So it's very easy when you have a lot of data, if you construct these kinds of functions, to spot some errors and see some problems. What's next? Lines. You can also change a lot of the design of the table. You can change everything. For example, let's say you don't, it was a very, very long discussion how we need to, how data frames should look like, but okay. If you want to remove all the lines, you can remove the horizontal lines. You can remove the vertical lines. If you want to add one line just on the first column, you can. So there's a lot of options. I won't go through here, but now you know how you can use. And if you want help, there is the docstring that should be fine. What is that? Okay. Why I use this? Just some information. For example, there is a software which computes a lot of perturbation torques and has many, many lines of information, the output. And I want to generate reports to easily see what is happening. So for example, I create this matrix, torques, atmospheric drag, whatever. And then I use this code here. Oh, wait a second, here. With a lot of options. I'm sorry, because to make the things very customizable, you have to type a lot. Sorry, there is a lot of keywords you have to do, you have to go, but whatever. And then when you do this, you have this very nice report-like information. When you have a lot of these, you can very easily see what's going on. So that's why we use those highlighters, the possibility to remove or add lines. The idea is to make the result clear. I want to have the result clear. But now let's move on, I think is to, yes, data frames. Since I don't remember the version, data frames is used in PrettyTables to show tables in the text, in the terminal, and in HTML. So when you load a data frame, let's create a random data frame here. It is PrettyTables. If you call the function show, of course, you do the same. But one nice thing is that all the data frames has some specific keywords through the show function, but all other keywords that are not specific to data frames are passed to PrettyTable directly. So if you have this data frame, but for example, you don't like the row number column, you just put here show row number false, and you remove this column. If you, just to see how many configurations there are in data frame, this is the code to print. So there is a lot going on here. Every time let's say you pass a keyword that we defined here, it got replaced. So for example, you can replace the header of the data frame. How do you do this? For example, let's say that for some reason, you want to have the name of the column, and instead of the type, you want the mean value of the column for some reason. What do you need to do? You call show, my mouse, and the header will be the first line, the header, the names of the columns, and the second line, the mean for each column. If I do this, then we have the mean here. You can have the maximum value, the minimum value, whatever. We are lacking a footer. I will do this sometime. I don't know when, but I will. And this is how you customize. You can replace, but remember, when we add something here, we are replacing the option in the data frame function here. So it can.
Just a question. You could do the same with rows. Like if you now want row names, you could also add with this row.
In the row label, yes, you can. you can. Maybe, yes, you can. You just add, because we have this entity called row labels that, I will just put the same number of, oh, okay, labels. Oops. I think it's not here. Okay. So there is there is a new column here with the row label. So you can put the mean, whatever you want here. Yes, you can do this. But my time is okay. Okay, so I want to show some very nice usage. I don't know if I mentioned to you, Bogman, but since I think 1.5 years, we are using data frames together with ODBC. Thanks very much, Jacob. Every day we fetch the telemetry of the satellite. We generate this data frame with colors and whatever, just to get a glimpse of the state, to see if anything is going wrong. The problem with attitude, that is the system I'm working with, sometimes it's not a 1 or 0, problem or not problem. We have some trends that's difficult to filter. So this kind of features are very important for us. I will just load one example here. Whoops. Boa. Okay. So we have this is satellite telemetry, not all of them, just a part. We have thousands of telemetries. But the first thing I do when I have this big amount of data, big for our use case, we use the terminal pager. So you can scroll through the data frame here. We can also freeze some rows here so I can scroll the telemetry keeping the header, right? But it's not very easy. A lot of numbers, right? You see numbers. What does it mean? There is some problems. That's where I normally use highlighters. For example, let's say that if this column here gets negative, it's a problem. So we just define some highlighters here. Call again show. Remember, everything I pass here, it goes to PrettyTables, so I can add highlighters here also. So HL1, HL2. And then it will print the table with this information. Now let me freeze this. Okay? So I just need to scroll and I will see when I have a problem or not. So it's very easy to verify this. You can, in the highlighter, you have, this is the, how can I say, the simple way to use a highlighter. There is a more generic API where you can specify the crayon depending on the value of the cell. Why we do this is to make some very nice results. I would just pass it, then whoops. What I'm doing here is using color scheme, and I want to make the color proportional to its value, because, for example, if you have some temperature or something like this, it can go hotter or colder, and if we pass some threshold, it can be very bad. So we can do this, is the same highlighter, you have an activation function, but now we don't use the simple version, we use a version that the crayon depends on the data. If you do this and show the data frame with this highlighter, takes a while. Then we see this colorful pattern where we can check if something is going beyond the limit. You must type a lot of things, as I show here. It's not, but fortunately, you just do it once, and every day it gets running, and we can see and check if some problem happened. Okay. Next steps. We have a lot to do in PrettyTables, so help is really appreciated, because we have requests to implement, we can, for example, change the table format for some predefined ones. So for example, if I type PrettyTables a TF table format, TF markdown, I can kind of print markdown format here. But we have a lot of requests. We have a request to build an org mode support. We have a request to, there is in the backend called typist, I think. It was meant to replace LaTeX. So there is a lot of things that we also have to implement. This structure here, as I show, is really lacking a footer down there. So you can add some compilations like the mean, we have to do that. But first, I think I need to stabilize the pack. There's some internal things that I really don't like. And of course, I have to write documentations. Data frame has amazing documentation, except for how do you customize the output, but it's my fault, because I have to do this kind of, I will do this. Sorry. I didn't listen to people. I tried to split satellite to box and other packages into many packages, I think 7 or 8. It took a lot of work, much more than anticipated. So sorry, but it will be done. So this is everything I have to do. I'll try to end a little bit earlier so that we can take the photo. So if you have any questions, please.
Yeah, thank you very much. Yes, so before I pass to the questions, let me just say that don't be sorry, because, the package is so amazing that, it's clear that it's like no time to do everything. And really, of course, documentation would be very welcome, but still, the power of what you have done is, like I'm still, every time I see what you show, it's like learning something new, and it's super cool. Okay, so let me invite questions.
What is the difference between using the show function and using the PrettyTable function?
The show function calls a function inside data frames that has a lot of customization. And if you just call PrettyTables, you just have that plain table. We can do this. So I have this data frame. If you call just PrettyTables, it will just show using the default selection of PrettyTables, which is nothing. Yeah, yes. So you will get access to this internal function that has a lot of tunnels, the configuration. Sorry?
Whereas if you want to customize the display of a matrix, then you just use...
Yes, use PrettyTables and add to all those things you want.
In your color scheme, it looked like you're aligning by decimal point.
No.
Was that something that you added, like, if you go up a couple pages to your...
Yes, when you're using data frame here, and it takes a while because you have to render the entire table, and it's a big one. When you have a float, I think, an abstract float column, we have a function in PrettyTables that you can align by regex. So you provide the regex, and all the columns will be aligned on that character. And we are doing it here in the decimal point. Yes, so it's aligned on decimal point. This is not.
This is what Milan wanted.
Yes. I implemented it especially because Bogomil asked. I really want the dot align. And okay, let's do this. The function is here. You see, you have this keyword called alignment anchor regex. You pass the regex, it defines an anchor and align everything on that anchor. And you can select if it's right or wrong.
Yeah, I was wondering the highlighter and the formatter, that there was a difference in the formatter you get the value and in the highlighter you get the whole table, but what's the reason that you have
the reason is because I thought when you're formatting a cell, you just want to know the value of the cell. But in highlighter, you maybe want to highlight a cell depending on the value of the another one. But in control system, if you have something that goes up, and maybe you want to highlight the next value. So you have to have access to the entire table. That's what the reason.
Yeah, okay.
If you go from the terminal output to, say, markdown in HTML, will this table look exactly pretty much the same in HTML?
Not the same, but pretty close. You can. I think I don't know if I add in the documentation some examples in HTML. Maybe not. Coming soon. So maybe here I don't know. No, sorry, I don't. But yes, you can. It's just HTML, so you can highlighter, you can change colors, you can do whatever. But sometimes you have to change some things because it's different. For example, in HTML, I think you pass a CSS-like information to make into the style. So it's a little bit different, but you can do it.
Okay, so if there are any more questions, of course, Ronan is here around, and as you have just heard, we are working on preparing some good documentation of most common things, because there are so many features, as you have seen, that probably it's good to have the most common ones to be exposed and highlighted for the users.
Yes.
And the other thing that was like my idea when I looked at your presentation, that it would be maybe to think where like have recipes, so that, you know, most common things like, okay, do this color grade or, you know, red over something, and then something to have like a set of predefined functions, so that, you know, you don't have to repeatedly define it.
I completely agree, because it can get too much. You sometimes has to type a lot of things, but you can do very nice things. I think yesterday I noticed that JuliaCon, this package here, is using PrettyTables, and if you set the terminal link zone, you get this. For example, type JuliaCon now. No, I think it's today. Then you get all those informations here, and if you, for example, click here, it opens. Somebody did it. I did not know, but he used PrettyTables. But it's amazing, because you have those links here which are rendered, and somebody told me I want to use that, but I didn't know it went to JuliaCon package. So whoever do this, very nice work.
Yeah, so again, thank you very much.